take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say Hotep Abaragani to my Africana Studies colleagues and students and seekers after the truth. Remember, it's not how much you learned in school, it's how much you learned since you left school. And let me say also good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night and never ever goodbye, because I've always found goodbye traumatizing. I said I have always found goodbyes traumatizing. That's personal. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we are located at 8916 South Main Street, and we're worshiping and being hosted by our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, which is pastored by my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Hollidas. You know, they always say when the Baptists and the Methodists get together, there's always going to be a shouting in the camp. And surely God has blessed the fellowship in spite of all of the naysayers. God has blessed, and we thank God for the blessing and the fellowship. If you're in the neighborhood or want to be in a good spiritual church where you can feel the presence of God as you're sitting in your pew, and as you rejoice in the service, well, come right on in. We would be glad to host you and to receive you, okay? All right. The offering which you are viewing is a social justice offering, however, that is entitled It's Time. And, of course, the classical definition of time is that time is the mental presupposition of the duration of an object. I always thought that was a very classy definition. Of course, time is way more than that. Time can be a song, time can be a word, time can be a picture. All of those things are timepieces. Matter of fact, the late Dr. John Henry Clark said time is a compass that tells us where we need to go, and time is he said that of history. He said history is a compass that tells us where we need to go, and he said that history is a clock that tells us why we need to be on our way. All right, but with all of those observances placed aside there, we welcome you and we thank you for viewing our presentation. All right, I'm going to open up with the reading of the scripture from Deuteronomy chapter 15 and beginning at verse 12, which talks about reparations. And this is what it says: "And if thy brother, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go out free from thee. And when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not let him or her go away empty. Thou shalt furnish them liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress. Of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto them." All right, the word of God for the people of God. I started with reparations because that's what we're going to talk about today. I know a lot of black conservatives don't believe in reparations. A lot of immigrants, I'm sure, don't believe in reparations. Well, if you're coming to America from wherever you're coming from, whether it's Ukraine or Mexico, you got to come with the mind that you're going to adhere to the laws of this country. And one of the things that is holding up what America could be is that they have failed to acknowledge the debt that has accrued in continuity from slavery. That continuity extended past the magical period of Reconstruction, when they could have gotten it right, but they didn't choose to get it right. They chose to be hostile venomous, vengeful, and all of those types of adjectives. The animus with which the people all over the country treated the newly freed, those who were formerly held in slavery, and is a direct result of slavery. And so when they started to pass the black codes and deny black people the right to the franchise, because they said we wasn't educated enough. And of course, for a lot of us, the reason we weren't educated enough was because that all during slavery, it was a crime punishable by death to teach a slave how to read, or to be caught, for a slave to be caught with reading any material. And so you can see the nexus, you can see the chain. Yes, that slave chain is still up here right now in 2023, because that debt has accrued, because following slavery, and they started what you call the sharecropping, which was just where before they had to take care of you. Now they don't have to take care of you, and you had to buy everything at the big house, so you never was out of debt, even if you made a good crop, which you never know what was the reckoning, because of course the landowner would not give you a fair reckoning, and subject to shoot the sharecropper if he challenged or disputed the results. And so most Negroes, sharecroppers, had to actually just steal away from the plantation and get out of there and go somewhere else, because they were never going to make it out of debt. You had the chattel slavery, and then you had debt slavery. And I think debt slavery well, no, it's not as worse as chattel slavery, but it sure is a close second. Because if you owe somebody anything, you're never free until you get that yoke off of you. And this system puts that yoke upon all of us. Even if we are not in debt, they show us things that make us feel like, well, if I could go in debt to buy this, and then you go into debt to buy something else, and before you know it, you're on that treadmill, and you're not free because you're in debt. You got to go to work because you're in debt. You can't stay home if you're sick because you're in debt. You can't lay in the bed if you're sick because you got debt. You got to get up from there and go meet the man, go pay those bills. And that debt penury, that debt slavery goes across the line, but it was especially heavy on those who had been formerly enslaved, who were so-called black people. I state so-called because black does not occur in nature, and race does not occur in nature. White does not occur in nature. Those are man-made social constructs, political concepts. And so we find ourselves warring with ourselves against a phantom that was conjured by an evil system of that we term white supremacy now. And but that system has ruled the world for over 500 years. Recently, the California Reparations Commission issued their final report, which is a 700-page report, very excellently done, very excellently researched and re-researched and referenced and cross-referenced. And I'm amazed at the complicity of California with the slave trade, even though California came into the Union as a free state in 1850. But yet, the telltale marks of complicity with slavery, agreement with slavery, giving a nod and a wink to the enslavers is quite apparent. And as I said at the beginning, the continuity is there for all to see. So it was not just the 250 years of unrequited toil, as Abraham Lincoln so eloquently said in his second inaugural address, but it was the continued complicity of the application of racial stereotypes following the Civil War, even up to today. Yes, that chain is up here in 2023. When I was a child in 1955, the most horrendous murder at that time was the murder of Emmett Till, whose body was found in the Tallahatchie River by the High Sheriff's son. But now it has never stopped. It's never ended. And the horrors of that lynching are still with us in Jordan Neely, who was lynched on a subway train in New York about a month ago, and his killer was allowed to go home free that evening. Didn't have to go in, didn't have to face arrest, was not detained. The police said no harm, no foul, which was a throwback to how it used to be. Said you kill a black person, it's going home. It's just like killing flies. Well, it seems like that same attitude is in existence now. And I'm sure you remember the Ohio case of Tamir Rice, who was a 11 or 12-year-old boy who was killed by the police while he was holding a BB gun or a pellet gun. Was playing out there in the park all by himself, and the police came up, and within 30 seconds that boy was dead. And they called that justifiable homicide. And as a matter of fact, the officer was fired, but went right down the road and was able to get hired and employed by another law enforcement municipality in that same general area. So no, things have not changed that much. They may not put the rope over the tree to lynch you, but they're still choking you to death on the subway car and in the food lines at Walmarts. And the most recent occurrence was last Saturday to be exact, when a officer, Greg Capers, who happened to be black in Indianola, Mississippi, shot a 11-year-old named Adarian Murray. That was last Saturday. And thank God the child survived, but he does have shot him in the chest. He had a collapsed lung, perforated his liver, and fractured his ribs. But by him being a young kid, he's back home already. But that does not take away from the fact that the child had called the police. He had called 911 at his mother's behest because someone was in the home that the mother wished to be removed. And she told this child to go call the police. Child called the police. 911. The police came and ordered everybody out. And when this child came out the bedroom with his hands up, like the police said, policeman shot him in the chest. You can see the picture on YouTube, on CBS News. It has been well covered. And this officer is on paid leave, which means he's got vacation with pay. His name is Greg Capers, black man, black officer. And the kid he shot in Indianola, Mississippi, was a black child. So wherever we go, we are facing all of this danger, always at the risk of our lives. Is that right? All right. Back to my reparation. I said the Reparations Committee in California had turned in their report, and that they had submitted their findings to the, I think they had to submit their findings to the legislature. The legislature was going to submit their findings to the governor, or else it was vice versa. They were submitted to the governor, and the governor was submitted to the legislature. But anyway, the last I heard, the final figure that the committee said that anybody who could trace their lineage, not their race, but their lineage, back into any enslaved person, that they were worthy and should be compensated $1,200,000. All right. So we knew that wasn't going to go anywhere on the state level, because that would have to come on the federal level, because slavery was a federal program. Slavery was inculcated and appropriated and protected in the Constitution of the United States. Slavery, although the word is not mentioned, the word slavery does not appear in that document, but it does speak of people held to service or involuntary servitude or labor. And there was a amendment added, slavery amendment that said that if any person held to labor or involuntary servitude that escaped to another state could not be released from that servitude because of any law in that state, but they should be given up on the petition or the claim of any person to whom such service or labor may be due. I'm kind of quoting, paraphrasing, but the original slave documents are still extant. Okay, the runaway slave document is still extant, and that's still in the Constitution, even though it's null and void, thank God, because of the results of the Civil War and because of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, respectively. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, except as punishment for crime whereof the person shall have been duly convicted, and that was the 13th Amendment. 14th Amendment, of course, is that great amendment, that catch-all amendment that confers citizenship and says that you shall not be held unless without due process. You shall not be arrested or killed without due process. That means you have to go before a judge or a jury and be convicted or declared not guilty. You have to have due process, and it's a lengthy amendment, and I'm probably butchering it, but that was it, or some of the major points in that 14th Amendment. Remember, the 14th Amendment right now is being proposed by those who are attempting to get President Biden to invoke the 14th Amendment, which says that the validity of the U.S. debt shall not be questioned or challenged. Biden, of course, has not done that. He doesn't feel he has the constitutional authority to do that for the debt ceiling. But yet it is in there, in that 14th Amendment. About 3 or 4 sections of that 14th Amendment, and I'm rusty on my law, or Constitution. I never have been a constitutional law scholar. Not that I don't have a general understanding of that Constitution as it affects me and as it affects you. So consequently, the Reparations Committee has done their due diligence, and they have submitted their 700-page report. And as I said previously, this is going to have to come out of the federal government's budget, which means that no one state can be responsible for reparations for slavery. It's going to have to come from the top back down, because California right now has a $32 billion deficit, 32 billion with a B dollar deficit. So we could not hardly pay out 1.2 million in reparations to anybody. And of course we all understand that. But that's not the point. The point is that the effort has to be recognized, and it has to be acknowledged, and it has to be made. And that is where the United States of America is on the letdown. It does not acknowledge slavery, and it does not acknowledge that it has a debt to the descendants of the formerly enslaved. Even though, mind you, I don't want to raise my voice because this thing might distort. Even though the slaveholders in the Washington, D.C., Maryland area were compensated during the Civil War. They received compensation for their slaves, but the slaves didn't receive a dime. And that is what is the insult. That is so galling, that the person who did the labor didn't get paid a penny. Not an ugly penny, not a pretty penny. And so that ledger account is still wide open. And that is what we are attempting to close, to get the nation to acknowledge the debt that it owes to the formerly enslaved. As Randall Robinson said, you need to make whole the people that you have injured. Slavery was a traumatic event, and say get over it all you want, but that trauma is still in the nation. It is certainly in the genes of black people. Those of you that have studied psychology, you know about genetics, you know about epigenetics, which means that you weren't there, but it was such a traumatic event that it's in your gene, and you have the effects of it, and yet you were not even there. It's just like when you hear about a horrendous crime, and you weren't there, you don't know the people, but you feel something within you. That's the psychologists and scientists call that epigenetics. Don't get me into epigenetics. I'm just telling you what the facts are. And Dr. Joy DeGruy has a very interesting course that deals with where they cover the epigenetics, post-traumatic slave disorder, they call it. And that's what slavery was. How do you get over something like that? You don't just get up and walk away from that and don't carry no vestiges or memory of that with you. Why, you carry that with you. And the nation has never acknowledged that debt, whether it be psychic or whether it be financial. The government has refused to acknowledge that. And you talk to the people, American, Asian, and Pacific Islanders, they don't want no parts of paying reparations to black people. But they got their reparations from World War II. And they didn't complain about them checks. And we didn't complain about giving them the checks. But now they want to complain when the black people say we need to get our reparations. The Asians say no. The immigrants say no. The white supremacists, nationalists say no. The people who claim that even though they are the beneficiaries and of the fruits of slavery, yet they say, well, we weren't there, and so you can't hold us responsible for something. Yeah, we hold you responsible. You got the benefits. You got the benefits, and we got the disability. 5 minutes. All right. All right. So I was been reading one of our black conservatives just to get the opposite point of view. So I've been reading Thomas Sowell and what he says about reparations. I don't think will hold water for this reason. We're talking about reparations in the United States of America. He's saying that slavery was universal, going all the way back to the dawn of man. How could it be universal going all the way back to the dawn of man when we talk about American exceptionalism, that we are exceptional and we wouldn't do what the other people did? But yet slavery in the United States, by the time the ships came to the plantation way back there in 1619, which is really the start of the United States, not 1776. The dawn of slavery was in 1619 when those first 20 slaves were disembarked from that ship. I can't think of his name right now, and was sold there in Virginia. And Nicole Hannah Jones has developed a 1619 project where she really does a deep dive into that event and how it affected the nation, because those slaves were bought there, those people were bought there, and they were enslaved there. They have been free in that country, but they have been captured and sold into slavery, sold away from their shores of their. They never saw their home again, and no ship ever came from their home to take them back home. They never got no letter from back home or communication from back home from then on. And then, of course, the slave trade was very onerous, although it was very profitable. Anytime you got a 3/5 clause in the Constitution of the United States, despite what Mike Pence says that the reason why they went to civil war was because nobody wanted to compromise, the Constitution was a compromise. The 3/5 clause was a compromise. And all of those type of things. Well, don't let me get started. Finally, let me put this in here. You may never have heard of a lady named Julia Clarice Brown, but she was an informant. And when they asked her about reparations, she said no, that she didn't see why the blacks should get reparations. And she, matter of fact, at that time, she said they should arrest Martin Luther King for blackmail. And I ordered her book so I can get more acquainted with her. But she wasn't the only informant, and this, of course, was during the 60s, or the 50s and the 60s. Also, there was a man named Ernest Withers, who was a photographer for the Civil Rights Movement. A lot of the great photographs that we have he is responsible for those photographs, and yet he was an FBI informant also. And so you can't just let people say, well, no, you can't, you don't deserve reparations. You got to make the case. And that's what this Reparations Commission did. And I've used up my time. The people are still out in the union striking for better wages and to get a better cut percentage or residuals from the AI that they know is going to be more prominent as the years go by, and they're trying to get a better piece of that pie. And as I close, remember, if you're working on a job and they don't want to pay you, take my advice, take all that slavery advice, and don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. We out of here. Love you. Hope to see you again real soon. All right?